Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you some possible not workarounds, but different things you can try if you're having trouble getting a dev kit avatar to work properly. Okay, so not all dev kits are created equal. It really depends on the mesh body designer, how they create their files for their dev kits. I have no control over how they actually create their files and whether or not those files are going to be compatible with Maya, let alone MayaStar. And so I was helping a customer the other day who was having trouble with a legacy body. And I video called with her and walked her through the process, and no matter what we tried, nothing was working. And so I'm going to show you a method that we ended up using and steps that we took that actually got the mesh body to at least appear to be working. I don't know how accurate it was, but it appeared to be working smoothly. And so I'm going to take you through those steps because we had tried all the normal dev kit import stuff. She had a DAE file, and we tried this method first, which she had done on her own. She had tried both methods on her own, and it just wouldn't work. It would look fine, but as soon as she tried to use the appearance sliders, she would start to get errors. And so, and I watched her go through each one to try to figure out where it was going wrong, if there was anything that was going wrong. And I couldn't figure out anything of why it wasn't working right, which meant the DAE that she had received in the dev kit, there was something really weird about it, or whoever had made the dev kit didn't make it in such a way where it was actually compatible. I don't know if it would even have worked with Blender. So anyway, so I decided to create my own sort of like example. I wasn't going to use Legacy's actual file. I was going to, because so I came up with my own sort of DAE to sort of demonstrate the steps that we took. Okay. So you can import here, or you can go to File, Import, doesn't matter. And I'm going to import this file here. And it's just an empty scene. Okay, and we see it didn't come in quite right. So normally you would get DevKit Prepper, and everything looks fine. Now this particular file I know will work just fine going through the normal procedures, but we're going to pretend like it doesn't. Okay, so when you import a file into a blank scene, like the legacy file that she brought in, it looked fine in the scene if I remember correctly. So we'll just pretend we're at that point where the file looks fine. Now something you want to take note of when you import a file in an empty scene is you want to look at the mesh. You can see this is not your standard T-pose. It's kind of like a modified A-pose. So when you see that, you're going to want to turn on your joint X-ray and select a shoulder. And you want to look at the rotation. And the rotation is at 45 degrees, negative 45 degrees on the left, which means it should be positive 45 degrees on the right and rotate of X. So you want to make note of that. And you want to come down here and look at the hips. And luckily these are not rotated. Okay. The other thing you'll want to do is you want to kind of look at all the bones. And you want to kind of see if any bones look like they're in custom bone positions. So far everything kind of looks like it's normal. And I do happen to know, since I made this, that everything else is normal. It's just the arms are rotated at 45 degrees. If it comes in, and as long as it looks normal, it doesn't look like it's scrunched up or anything like that, you might want to start looking at the bones. You might want to open up the avatar skeleton XML file, which is in here. It's on your main drive, program files, Second Life viewer, character. You want to find the avatar skeleton XML file and open it up in, say, a WordPad. It's going to be kind of hard to read, but you want to kind of look at the bones, and if any bones look like they're really out of place, because they might be custom bone positions. I always tell all mesh body designers don't use custom bone positions because it just makes it so much harder when you're going to make a dev kit, an accurate dev kit going from either Blender to Maya or Maya to Blender. You know, just straight T-pose. At the most, rotate the arms or the legs, but don't move them into custom bone positions. And so if you want to kind of see is if a bone looks like it might be in a custom bone position, is this defines the skeleton. So like if I come up here to the very top, which is the M pelvis, name M pelvis, and you want to look at not the position, POS stands for position, you want to look at the pivot. And there's the position actually in Maya is the pivot. And Second Life is weird. Why they decided it had to be 0.067 or 1.067015, that is such an incredibly small amount. You know, that's ridiculous. 0.067 would be just fine. That's Z. So it's the first number is X, second number is Y, third number is Z. So if you suspect that the custom mesh body designer is using custom bone positions, you'll have to go through the whole skeleton and compare it to the avatar skeleton file. You could probably make a file that has, instead of all this extra information, just has the name of the bone and the pivot position, and then kind of see if the bones are very close to that position. If it was 1.06723345, that's close enough to 67, you know, round it up or down, you know, so it would be 0.067 would be just fine. But that's a lot of work. And if the custom mesh body designer did their job right and created their dev kit correctly, there shouldn't be any problem importing it into Maya or MayaStar. So, okay. But it's tricky, it's difficult. There's pitfalls when you're creating a mesh body, and especially with Blender. But I'll go into that in another video. So okay. So let's go back to Maya here. And so okay, so you kind of look at that. And the other thing you might want to look at is to see is well, I'll show it in a minute. Okay. Is let's see. So the next thing you want to do, the next step, like I said, normally we went through these steps and it didn't work. So this is what another thing you can try. I'm not saying it will absolutely work, but it's something that's worth a shot. Is you select your mesh, and I have a video about Dora. Open up your Dora. Don't use the Maya's built-in weight exporter importer. It is horrible. It is horribly inaccurate. Okay, and I have a video, I believe I have made one about Dora. Watch the video, download Dora, get Dora. It's slow, but it's the only one that I know of that is 100% accurate. Okay, so you select your mesh, you click export. This particular one I named AA Dev Kit Body Export. You click export. It doesn't take that long to export. There's about 15,360 vertices, or no, that's faces. Vertex, 15,354 vertices in this mesh. Most mesh body designers dev kits are a lot bigger than that. So the more vertices there are, the longer it's going to take. Okay, and it always takes about 3 to 4 times longer to import than to export using Dora. But believe me, it's well worth the wait. So I'm not going to make you wait through this export process, but you export it. Okay, then after you've exported the weights out, then you want to go to MayaStar, detach skin, and you notice that disappeared. It's just because it's 100 times bigger. Okay, so let's come over here and make this down back to 1. Okay, and it appears to be in the same position that it was before. Okay, if you want to know if there was custom bone positions, what you could do is, let's see, let's make this Lambert 1 and change Lambert 1 to a different color, because what we're going to do is we're going to change the color. Okay, now it's not rigged. We detached the skin. It's not rigged. I'm going to delete the skeleton, and I'm going to re-import. Oh, and I got to rename this a different name. Original, unrigged. Okay, so it's unrigged. And then I'm going to, let's see, let's put this on a different layer. This is called this original. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to import the same mesh again. Okay. And because I'll do the dev kit prepper. Okay. Now that I've imported the same mesh again, we can see, as long as you get that flickering skin or between the colors, we can see that the unrigged mesh matches up perfectly with the rigged mesh, the darker rigged mesh, which means there was no custom bone positions. That the bone positions are what they should be. Okay, so that's how you can, one of the ways you can tell if there's been a custom bone position is after you detach the mesh, rename the mesh, get rid of the skeleton, import it again, and if you have to do a dev kit prepper, you can do that again. That's one way you can tell if there is custom bone positions, or there would be need for custom bone positions because the mesh doesn't fit anymore. But this is close enough. The shoulders, that looks a little wonky, but I think that's more just the camera. This is fine. Okay. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is you're going to want to either export out the unrigged mesh as a DAE, or you want to just copy it to the clipboard. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to copy it to the clipboard. Okay, once it's copied to the clipboard, you want to do a brand new scene. Okay, the other thing you want to take a note of is the mesh rigged to the finger bones? If it's rigged to the finger bones, then the next thing you need to do is what we're basically going to be is we're going to be doing this second step down here, is you activate one of the MayaStar avatars. And so if it has finger bones and it's rigged to the finger bones, you want to use a bento. If it's a female, then use a female bento. If it's male, use male bento. If it's not rigged to the finger bones, then you can go ahead and use one of the originals. But we're going to pretend it was rigged to the finger bones, because that's what most people are going to get. And what most dev kits that I have seen have all been rigged to the finger bones. So okay, so this is a female. We're going to say bento, and this is just the same as going up to MayaStar activate avatar female bento. It's just in a more convenient place in this menu right here if you have it open. Okay, so we have that. We've imported, or we've activated the avatar. Then what we're going to do is we're going to import the DAE. No, next thing we're going to do is we're going to paste. We're going to paste the avatar body that we copied to the clipboard. Okay. And it has its own layer. Okay. And what we're going to do is let's hide the other body there. Okay. So remember, we have to rotate the arms to 45 degrees. So there's the left shoulder. And it's negative 45 degrees on the avatar's left. And it's positive 45 degrees on X for the, whoops, oh, Wrong bone. There we go. Okay, so positive 45 on her right arm. And now we need to create a custom bind pose because we rotated it. So we go MayaStar, and you can do it in two places. You either go to Skin Weights Tools, Custom Bind Pose, create bind pose just like that. Or you could go, and you don't have to have any skeleton or any bones selected. You just do it. Animation, or you can go into Animation Poses, Custom Bind Pose. Create bind pose. Same thing. Does the same exact thing. Okay. Now that we have our custom bind pose, what we can do is we can, in MayaStar, all bones select. To select all the bones in the skeleton. Because that way, when we import the bones from here, the mesh is going to be rigged to all the bones. So if you don't rig to all the bones and you miss a bone and then you import the weights, well, the weights obviously won't be imported onto that bone. So, so we selected all the bones, shift set, select the mesh, or select it in the outliner, however you want to do it. And then we're going to do smooth bind skin. Selected joints. For max, maintain influences, colorize. The rest of the stuff really doesn't matter. I usually do not have allow multiple bind poses turned on, if at least, yeah, and then go bind skin. Although I might have fixed that in the last update. Can't remember. Okay, so now it's rigged, but if we were to open up the female attribute appearance editor, and especially if we go to torso breast size, you can see the weighting on it is all messed up. Now let's like that so it's a little easier to see. You can see this is all messed up. Okay, now I could either put it back to the default, or if we do this, if I select the mesh again and go to Dora Import, scroll down with the mouse wheel to AA this, and click Import, vertex order. That's the best, that's the fastest, as long as the mesh is exactly the same. And click Import. Now it's going to take a few minutes, so I'm going to pause the video. Okay, so it came in, it imported, and now you see her breasts, even though, large, are normal. You remember we had that big stuff underneath here? So that means that the weight's imported correctly. Okay, and I rigged this mesh so I know that's the way it's supposed to look like. Okay. As horrible as it is. Okay. So the last thing that we need to do is, because since we've selected all the bones and we rigged it to all the bones, we need to remove unused influences. So you need to go MayaStar, remove unused influences. If you don't, and you want to see on any mesh what it's rigged to. So when we first imported it, before we detached the skin and saved it to the clipboard, you could see what it's rigged to. So you can come here, you can come to, for earlier versions of Maya, and then come to Skin Cluster Bone Names, open up the script editor. Oh, there it is, just down below here, how to get it. And then in here you'll see it. So these are all the bones that it's currently rigged to. And that's a lot more than 110. It's 159 bones. Because there's 159 bones in the avatar body itself, or skeleton, but you're only allowed to rig to 110 bones maximum for any single mesh. You can have mesh clothing that are two separate meshes, So if you did a pair of pants, you could have one side, one mesh, one leg and one mesh, and the other side as a separate mesh, and they both could be rigged to 110 bones. They don't have to be rigged to the same bones. So, or they can, So what I'm saying is each individual mesh, they can be in the same DAE. You can have multiple meshes that are rigged, that are separate meshes in one DAE. A DAE file can have all the bones in the skeleton, 159 bones, in the DAE itself, but the DAE then would have to be made up of multiple individual meshes, separate meshes. So each separate mesh can be only rigged to 110 bones. That's a limit that Linden Lab put on it. Why? Because they found out that a lot of even moderately good graphics cards couldn't handle more than 110 bones. They start to get errors, so they limited it to 110 bones. So okay, so if you really wanted, you could come in here and highlight it and copy it, and then just select those bones to rig to in the outliner, but that would take a long time. And if you just miss one bone, that's all it takes. This way, if you do it the way I'm suggesting here, where you rig it to all the bones, and then just come in here and go remove unused influences. You select the mesh in object mode, and then you just click remove unused influences, and here it removed 120 bones. So we know that we are well below 110 bones. So now this mesh would be ready to export, and everything is still working fine. So that's how you would get it. That's how you would get it if it wasn't working. Export out the weights, copy to the clipboard, bring it in, rotate the bones if you need to rotate them, or put them in the custom bone positions if there's custom bones. Then do a quick rigging of the pasted mesh, or the OBJ if you export it out as an OBJ. Rig it real quick and then import the weights. So real quick, just going to review. You, in an empty scene, import the DAE, then export out the weights using Dora, then detach the skin to see, before you detach the skin, note the rotations of the joints or whatever in the custom bone positions. Detach the skin, look at the mesh again, see if, and then copy it to the clipboard, activate an avatar, whichever is the appropriate avatar, in a new empty scene, and then do a quick rigging of the pasted, paste the mesh, do a quick rigging to all the bones, import the weights using Dora that you had just exported out, and then remove unused influences, and then check it, at whichever before or after to make sure that it looks like it's working fine. I'm not guaranteeing you that this will actually work 100% of the time. It all depends on the DAE that the dev kit provider gave you, that the Mesh Body Designer's dev kit. Is it accurate or not? How did they create it? Did they mess anything up when they exported out the DAE, or did they forget that they did something? Such as in Blender, there's the baked sliders to avatar, and to the mesh, and if they did that, if the mesh that they uploaded as a body to Second Life was before they baked the sliders, so that the body that is uploaded to Second Life is not baked to sliders, but that sometime they baked to the sliders and then sent you the DAE with the baked sliders, there's nothing I can really do. They messed up their DAE, they messed up their dev kit, and baking, the mesh to slider, like I said, that's always a bad idea. So I always tell mesh body designers, do not use custom bone positions. you know, because if they use custom bone positions, it makes it so much harder to make a good dev kit, especially one that's going from Blender to Maya, and even it's hard to go from Maya to Blender. If you know, and you can bake the sliders in, but maybe I'll do that in another video. There's no real call or need for it. It's only used very special occasions, and so it's not worth it. You know, I wish they had never put that in there. The baked sliders to mesh, and because yeah, if all it takes is they made the mesh body designer can forget they baked the sliders, and now they're using custom bone positions, and oh my god, it just gets then there's practically, it's incredibly difficult for them to make an accurate dev kit. So, but anyway, that's it. That's the process of getting, if it won't come in any other way. I don't know if it, like I said, I can't guarantee you 100% that this will work or not. But at least it gets the sliders working. So awesome. So we'll see you in the next video.